in the church, the Bible. The one reason that I have a problem with evolution is because it doesn't jive with what the Bible has to say, and I take the Bible as the Word of God, and I hang my whole life on what the Bible has to say. Like I've given, I follow Jesus. Like I've given my life to Jesus, and if I found that even one thing was out of place in the Bible, I mean, how could I trust the rest of it? Like it says, Jesus says, I'm worthy to take your life. Like I actually was sinless. I died on the cross. I came back to life. So I defeated death. And I can also do that for you too. Like, not that you're good enough, but that I am good enough. What I did was enough. And so basically, I'm hanging my life on what Jesus said, and Jesus referred back to the Old Testament. The whole Bible is a story from start to finish, from Genesis to Revelation, that agrees and complements. One book complements the next. The Old Testament builds up a case for why Jesus is so necessary, and then Jesus comes and fulfills everything that they've been speaking about. And now the story after Jesus is how men follow him, and the scene after Jesus, post Jesus. So for me, the one problem I have with evolution is that it doesn't agree with the account in the Bible, both the account of creation, when in Genesis 1, when God gives an account for how he made this, he just said, I mean, according to the Bible, he says, just let it be. He says, let there be fish, there's fish. Let there be animals, there's animals. Let there be humans. And it says God made humans in the likeness of God, which is fairly special. So that's my one problem. And of course the timeline, billions or whatever years needed for evolution, also doesn't agree with the accounts of the Bible. And so that's my first issue with evolution, is it doesn't agree with my most core belief, which is found within the Bible.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that it's not exactly not that there's anything wrong with evolution. It's just that you see it as just contradicting to what the Bible says. And I actually have a question for you, because you said that the books, I don't know what the proper way to say it, but the sections, the books of the Bible, is that how you say it?
Yeah, there's I believe 66 books.
Right, so they're books of the Bible.
Yeah, I actually didn't go to Bible school, so I'm
right.
Because my other foot I want to talk about is science. That's something I know better.
Yeah.
But
So my question is, you said about the supplementation of the books of the Bible, how they complement each other. So,
yeah.
What about the unpublished books of the Bible? Where do those lie in?
Okay. Yeah, like the Apocrypha and
I don't know. There's a lot of them. I think
like the Gospel of Thomas. Things like that. Okay. Well, simply stating, they you look at them, and they're so at odds. I mean, the Gospel of Thomas is some kind of fanciful writing about Jesus, but you look at it, and it's so far off of anything that we know of Jesus. Like the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who were eyewitness accounts of. These men. Matthew was a disciple of Jesus. Like he spent intimate. I mean, Jesus' ministry. He was with him. Every miracle he did, he was with him. John was Jesus' beloved disciple. I mean, he also was an eyewitness. And so you look at these four Gospels, and you see how they all agree with each other on who Jesus is, the nature of him, the miracles that he did, so on and so forth. Like these Gospels complement each other. Then you have a writing like the apparent Gospel of Thomas, and there's a lot of stupidity within this writing. And so basically what I'd say about a writing like that is there are writings that have been preserved besides the Bible, writings that sorry, we're just getting turned around
Isaac's
in here.
Isaac is here.
Oh, come on in, man. Okay. Second, we're getting somebody in here. Oh, this is gonna get interesting. This is gonna be good.
Continue.
Yeah, there are writings that have been preserved, other than the Bible, that were written at the same time as the Bible. But it's like let's say, to give a comparison.
Just,
let's say
let me jump in there. Let me jump in there. And doesn't that make you suspicious, even as you said, with one foot in the realm of science, that there exist works of, I'd say, equal age and historical.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is because Keegan and I were doing a little research a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep.
And we came across that there was 200 plus maybe unpublished books of the Bible. Was it? It was like 240 or something. It's more than 100, which is, you said 66 are in the Bible. So it seems to me that you have about 300 books of the Bible that are potential for this holy Bible, and you took the ones that complement each other the best, and then said, well, this is the Holy Bible. That's what it seems like it could have been for me. It seems like there's more unpublished books of the Bible than there is published. I guess, Tony, you're taking this?
Yeah, actually, I have something to say to that. First of all, the so-called unpublished books of the Bible, I don't like the way we're phrasing that, because, well, not anything against you, but the whole... I
don't know that much about it, so
but the whole
fine.
canonization of the Bible, meaning how people put it together, there were things like, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and a lot of the epistles, letters that, some apostles wrote to various churches. And those works were in widespread, well, not publication per se, but everyone agreed on those being, words of God or words of God's prophet. People agreed that, Peter was a, follower of Christ, and they all agreed about certain things, and everyone agreed on at least 20 books in the New Testament, at least, being just everyone knowing and believing that it's the word of God. And there were other 7 that were kind of brought in that kind of were in, a little bit debatable, but then people were still... Most churches, I don't want to just throw out random statistics, but it would be something more than at least 80%, as in most people, believing it to be true. And the others were just, works that not many people even read. And maybe those letters, I'm not saying they're ungodly, maybe they have good principles behind them, they have good things in them, but they're just not in the Bible because they weren't believed to be words of God. And that's what this is, the words of God, not just good letters, not just good things written. And some of them, like the Gospel of Thomas or whatever, I believe to be straight up fiction.
Right, but see, now you're getting into the point I guess we're trying to make, is that it seems that the church, etc., the followers of Jesus picked and chose which books they would, what basically historical records they wanted as their holy scripture.
Well, not just wanted, but...
Yeah, can I just... Sorry, John, I want to step in here. And even you almost just sounded like we do just now. You said that, okay, so you have all these writings, I don't know how to classify them, but you have all these writings, and then they all have, in my opinion, the same level of truth, because they're all saying this is inspired word of God, and then mere men decided which ones were true and which ones were from God. And and it seems, and then you said, well, I'm sure that the other ones have good morals, and I'm sure that they have good thoughts behind them, and that's exactly how we view the entire Bibles. Well, I'm sure that there's lots of good moral value behind these books in the Bible, but we know they're not true, and that's exactly how you see the unpublished, as I'm going to call them, books of the Bible.
Yeah, well, and if you look at the gospel, I mean, this is a little bit outside of my expertise, but so let me put that. What do you call it?
This is nowhere near my expertise. So,
yeah, so what in the world? We got a bunch of people who have no clue what they're talking about, going back and forth. But what I do know about this is one, I would check your sources on hundreds of extra biblical writings that claim to be part of the Bible. I mean, I know it will say it in a website somewhere, but I could write up a website right now and say there's only 2 of them, and then I'll publish it and hey, there's a website that says there's only 2 of them, But I would just say I don't believe that there's hundreds. The other thing is if you look inside the Gospel of Thomas, actually read it, you won't find the morals. If you're talking about this is a book of good morals, you won't find the morals that you're after. I believe the Gospel apparently of Thomas is actually a fairly offensive book, and talks about degrading women, and says if a woman wants to be saved, she must first become a man and because only men will be saved. It's very fanciful writing, and very out there, and very and full of stupidity, right? But the other point is that when we talk about extra biblical writings, we're not talking about previous to Jesus. Those books are so ancient that honestly, only the books that have survived are the books that are in the Bible, and I give that, I give credit to God to protect His Word because they are so old and so well preserved.
Why not give credit to man, the people who actually literally preserved it?
Well, because I believe that it was God who worked through men to preserve this book. Like, yeah, sure.
Well, that's an easy way of attributing something that men did to God.
But if you look at ancient sources of writing, and we went over this, we touched on this a little bit, a few symposiums
I don't
ago,
want to get into a huge
but
debate about
just to touch
the
on
Bible,
but just to touch on what you were saying, the Bible is the most well preserved book, ancient source of text in the world today. I mean, in number of copies and in copy closest to the autograph and so on and so forth. It's hands and how does that expression go? It's a mile ahead of any ancient text, whether it be Pliny's writings or all these ancient writings. It is so far ahead of them that you look at it and you say, like, how is it? It's almost I don't want to say it's almost supernaturally ahead of them, but it kind of is. And it's like, how is the Bible so well preserved? And I would say, maybe the people who were preserving it were so passionate about these writings that you can attribute this to men and say, wow, men did an excellent job of preserving the Bible. But what about these other books? I mean, weren't people passionate about these scientific works or about these historical works? Like, the people who wrote it and their families, they should have been passionate about this too. But yet, the copies didn't survive like they survived for the Bible. So that's why, yeah, they were protected through men, but by God. I believe that God, because ultimately, if you look at the Bible, I believe it's God who does inspire men to carry His word, and that's even why Tony and I are here, is because God has changed our lives and given us a reason to speak so passionately about this thing that we believe. So I wholeheartedly will always give credit to God because that's my testimony, that's Tony's testimony. It's a personal thing, really.
Mm-hmm. Isaac?
All right, what I was going to say is that the Bible, the 66 books of the Bible was actually specifically chosen by a council of higher clerics, I believe around 1000 AD. So it wasn't actually a coincidence or anything. And the books that were removed, particularly in the New Testament, were that of Jesus. Those were, I guess, apostles or scriptures of Jesus actually being more human. So if you actually look into the New Testament, the lifespan between, I guess, Jesus from the ages of 12 to 33 are conveniently absent. So I don't know, that span, that time period, whatever was written about it, I believe that the council was that decided what books would be included. They wanted to remove any sort of humanization of Jesus, like Jesus spending time with like his siblings, stuff like that. They wanted to remove so that you could, it would be easier to worship the man, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and it's almost like this council, as Isaac is saying, picked and chose and created a character that's not actually true to the man that existed.
Well, okay, let me address it. Let me address that. The men who followed Jesus intimately were not part of his life at 12 and 13 and 14 and 18
but we do have
we
have records of
do we have accurate records? Like,
you have records of Jesus' birth.
Yeah, that's as soon as someone's born to a virgin, his life is automatically documented. If he's born the Messiah, right?
But who believes that he's born to a virgin? Because actually, if you, I do. But if you, sure. So there's a couple people in this room who do. But if you read through the Bible, you see that the Jewish people who are predominantly the people who are involved in Jesus' life, you see that they constantly throw little backhanded comments at Jesus, basically suggesting that he's a bastard. Is what they constantly suggest. So they just always say, yeah, sure, Mary, sure you were a virgin. I mean, that's your story and you're sticking to it. But we know that, and to have a baby outside of marriage, especially in that time, was incredibly frowned upon.
Right.
And so
but
she's running around saying
this
she's
kind
a
of brings
virgin.
up this kind of brings up another point that
Well,
I
I should address what Isaac said
go
first.
ahead.
And, so what Isaac said is that this council, the Council of Nicaea, is what
Yeah.
you're referring to.
Different council.
Well, it was a council.
It was a
around-
council of some kind.
Okay, well, let's not get too confused here, because what Isaac said is a council picked and chose which books they wanted to put in the Bible, and that's the Bible that we have today. Now, the way I want to address that is there was no council who picked and chose, oh, this should be in the Bible, this should not be in the Bible. All that has happened throughout history is that people have affirmed what the Bible.
Now, what it seems you're saying is that you're directly refuting what Isaac said.
No. I'm not directly refuting, because he's right. He's right that there have been councils who have come and who have looked at the Bible and said, yes, this is the Bible. No, this is not the Bible. He's exactly right in saying that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that these people are not using their, this is my opinion, and I think this should be taken out of the Bible. This should be put in the Bible. All they're doing is these men at these councils are affirming what people knew 2,000 years ago. Because 2,000 years ago, when you had the Gospels and when you had the letters of Paul, people were eyewitnesses to these accounts, and they could say, and it was very easy at that time, because people were actually there. So if you threw out a work of fiction, people would say that is garbage. That is not at all what happened, and this work has to be thrown out. And so at that time, there was a very solid system put in place, because you have eyewitnesses still there who can refute if a work of fiction comes true. And so this was the Bible. The Bible didn't have extra books at that time, and if I may say, this was affirmed by people who were eyewitnesses. Now you go through.
Let me address that. Let me address that right there.
Let me just finish my thought here. Finish my thought. Then you go throughout history, and then you have people. So this Gospel of Thomas and other writings were not written at the time of Jesus, when people could refute it, when eyewitnesses could say that is not.
But how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because when we go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls and we find ancient copies, when we keep finding older and older copies of the Bible, archaeologists find older and older copies, and it would actually be very advantageous, if I can throw a little bit of a plug right now. But April 6th. We're bringing in a guy who's an archaeologist in the Middle East who, I'm talking on second and third hand information, right? But this man's coming in to the campus on April 6th, UA 2120, and he's actually at ground zero in the Middle East, in Turkey, and places like that, digging up this very stuff that we're talking about right now. So as much as it's good to hear me talk, it's better to come on April 6th,
right.
5 p.m. UA 2120, and he'll talk about it. But all I know, and then I'll throw it over to you, Keegan, is it's like the Bible was completed. There were people, eyewitnesses, that would affirm that this is exactly what happened. Years later, people write writings. I'm going to write a fanciful story of Jesus, and I'm going to throw it into the mix. Now, even though it might have been written, 500 years after the fact, for us, 2,000 years removed, it's very tough for us to know. We look at 500 years. 1,500 or 2,000 years is fairly close for people 2,000 years removed. So we look at it and we say, how are we supposed to know when was this main line? And so these councils, all these councils did was affirm what the people knew 2,000 years ago and say, no, this is the work of God that everybody accepted as truth because they were there.
All right, and I want to bring this back to our original question.
Okay.
But just to wrap up, I want to say that I know that this is something that's open for debate.
Sure.
Like I said, I was raised in a Catholic school where they taught us that the 4 major Gospels were not, in fact, written by the apostles as eyewitnesses. They were orally handed down through by their followers who eventually wrote it down. And likewise for the Gospels of Judas and Thomas that you mentioned. But that's something that was taught to me through the Catholic
sure, and don't
Catholic
trust everything the
system.
Catholic Church teaches
you.
you.
Well, of course not, naturally.
I guess don't trust anything that anybody teaches you, but But I
But
would-
yeah, I'm
take
not a
exception
biblical
to that.
scholar. No one here is a biblical
No,
scholar.
we aren't,
So
we aren't.
I think we should round it back to my original question,
Fair enough.
which was, what about evolution, do you not agree with?
Evolution and creation.
So you said that the first thing
my
was
first foot.
the first thing
the
was
Bible.
that it conflicts with the Bible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
But I have, and I have a second foot.
yeah,
Of course.
Now we have
time I
to
checked.
bring up the fact that it seems to disagree, that the Bible seems to disagree with evolution on the basis of physical grounds. Like most of this, like science doesn't really make claims, as Isaac and Roman and I were discussing a couple of days ago. The science doesn't make claims on the spiritual realm, whatever you would call that.
Okay.
But it does make claims on the physical realm. Mm-hmm. Now, the Bible makes claims on both, which is where we see this inconsistency, is science makes claims on the physical realm when the Bible makes claims that contradict science in the physical realm. Now, what we see is what we call science, and that's what's contradicting. So I think that science is a far more credible source. Naturally, I think science is a far more credible source for observing our physical existence than the Bible. So I would say that from that perspective, the Bible is incorrect in terms of making these claims. It shouldn't be making these claims.
Okay. Well, there's two things here. Is science is relying on men's minds. Men's minds are finite. We are not. We don't have infinite understanding. You're relying on finite minds. Wow, I sound like I'm the voice of God now. This is incredible. But whatever. But science is relying on men's minds, finite minds who are not there. The Bible, on the other hand, is the work of God. One who doesn't have a finite mind but has an infinite mind, and who was there. So you say that you're going to hang your hat on science. You're going to hang your hat on finite minds because surely this is what we observe as humans in the 21st century, and so this has to be truth. Were we there? Of course not. But we have we have enough intellect to make up for our absence, and so even though we weren't there 2,000 or 6,000 or 10,000 years ago, or as you'd say, a billion years ago, it's okay because we're very smart. I would just say we have a finite capacity as humans, and on the other hand, God is infinite and was there. So that's why for me, the words of God hold more authority than the words of men.
I think you will actually get to the actual real problem with religion. And especially if you contrast it to science, where, as you said, science is created by men who are fallible, and the Bible was given by God, who is infallible. And that actually,
we just should stop there, Isaac. I love it.
No, I know, but that's
going,
actually a
keep
problem
going.
because you also will concede to the fact that any error or contradiction in the Bible is a result of a mistranslation from the voice of God down to man.
Well, I won't concede to that.
Well, then, will you concede that there are physical contradictions in the Bible?
No, I won't concede to
No,
that
okay.
either.
Well, then, all right. Let me. Okay.
And I'm not being like.
No, I understand.
proud
Okay,
about this.
I
just don't
can
believe there are.
cite one right now.
Yeah, and
okay,
that's
like
the thing is you'd need to cite one.
yeah,
You need to
okay.
look
In
at it.
Genesis, okay. In Genesis.
Okay.
Okay, Adam and Eve have two children, Cain and Abel, right?
Yes.
And then after Cain kills Abel,
Yes.
they ban him from the Garden of Eden. And he says
Okay.
to them, "Well, if if I am released, they will kill me." So who is he referring to?
Okay, that's a good question, Isaac. Cain and Abel are highlighted as children of Adam and Eve, but it doesn't ever say that they are the exclusive children of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, if you look in the Bible, you'll see that they lived to be, I think Adam lived to be 700, 800 years old. Yeah, and so in that time, I figure you could make, lots of children, right? we're not even talking birth control, right? So,
All right,
they're like rabbits.
If we forget about like inbreeding depression and all the genetic things, that would prevent.
Hey Isaac,
Okay.
that's okay. That's okay because not to advocate inbreeding. Like, I'm not saying go marry your cousin, but
No, brother and sister,
or brother,
like,
even
that's
worse. I'm
what
not
we're
saying go
talking.
marry your sister, but however, the whole point of inbreeding that makes it an issue is that genetic problems are usually
they're amplified. Yeah.
They're amplified when you have two people who have the same genetic problem, and we're going to make a weaker human race, and think just things are going to be a problem, and we know that's the truth. But if Adam and Eve were created by God and were created perfect, and what I'm saying to you is that, the garden was perfect, everything was perfect, and since then, sin has slowly been deteriorating the world, including men's genetic structures. I mean, the world is not as it was. And so if you have Adam and Eve's children marrying together, you don't have the same kind of genetic flaws that you have today. So it's not an issue.
Yeah, but the thing is, man, okay, if you were to go and say the world started whenever you think it started, when it was like 6,000 BC or whatever,
something like
and then
that.
Given that the human, gestation period, average generation span is like, 20 years per generation, the rate of mutation would have to be ridiculous to account for the genetic variation that we see today.
What genetic variation that we see today?
Genetic variation, as in, like, if I sample my DNA and sample my brother's DNA, it's going to be very conclusive that we're separate people, right? But whereas if we all started from two perfect individuals, the time it takes to diversify that genetic code would take millions of years.
A
lot of inbreeding. I think human race would die.
Isaac, if the diversity, God didn't make humans simple. God made humans perfect. But I didn't say he ever made them simple. He has the genetic code is already within these human beings.
We'll go to
complete humans.
Okay, we'll go to a different contradiction then. For example, like Noah's Ark and the flood, right? So the world flooded for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yep.
And then after that night, the water receded, I guess. My question is, where did the water go?
Where did the water go?
Yeah.
There's 3 times the amount of water that it would have. There's a third of, let me say it this way, there's a third of the water on the planet right now, all the water on the planet, that is needed to flood the entire Earth.
Yeah, essentially what he's saying is you would need 3 times the amount of water that is currently on the planet to cover all of the land.
So if there was enough water to cover the surface of the Earth, I doubt that even in one human generation that water could dissipate. And if it did, where would it go? Right?
Okay. Good question.
Sorry, just another thing is we always get back to the Grand Canyon, and it's funny how it always gets back to the Grand Canyon. But so people say like the silt deposits. Well, okay.
Let him answer the question.
All right, fine.
Jeez.
I can only take one question at a time. Isaac, in answer to your question, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I'm not the man who had the measuring cup and figured all this out.
It's just impossible.
True, and that's the thing is what we're throwing around in this room. None of us are actually firsthand. What do you call it? We're not the first-hand measurers of this information. Like we're second-hand, we're third-hand, we're fourth-hand. That's a problem. But I have seen. This is not a contradiction within the Bible. You're simply saying that this is a physical impossibility in the world that we see today for water to cover the whole world. And I'm saying to you that I've seen numbers that would state otherwise. Numbers that would state that there is enough water if everything is flattened, right? Like because the flood was more than just a nice little rainstorm where you pull out your umbrella. The flood, as it's described in the Bible, was a catastrophe. It was an absolute, when you watch those movies 2012 and you see how they're portrayed, that's what I'm saying the flood was like. It was volcanoes, it was earthquakes, it was rain, it was the world shifting in such catastrophic ways that every single man on the earth died, except for Noah and his family and those that were on the boat. This was bad enough to kill everything, to wipe the face of the earth and start anew. So
we're talking about another genetic bottleneck.
Yeah.
Not a genetic, but
only 2 people again.
Yeah, and there you go. And genetically, genetically, we're having problems right now.
No, man, it's not.
Well, Isaac, you can't say that. You can't say that.
I'm actually in molecular genetics.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm just saying that you need a lot more time. And if you had 2 individuals right now, you could not start a population. You would you need hundreds of individual.
You
if
cannot
not
start.
thousands,
Why can you start
because
a
the
population?
inbreeding depression. Like every single individual carries at least 300 lethal genes.
Okay.
But the only reason we can survive is because we're in a heterozygous state. So that is that we have one lethal copy and one regular copy. And that's actually what's the problem with inbreeding, is that if you get one lethal copy, one good copy, and then try to replicate another human being, the odds of getting two lethal copies are much
that's
more.
today. That's today. I'm talking thousands of years ago.
But so you're implying that the rules of physics have changed.
No, I'm implying. What I'm implying is that wait. Let me state what I'm implying to Isaac.
Because you were saying that Adam and Eve were perfect, and that's why their genetic mutations weren't a problem. But now you've got Noah, which was generations later, who doesn't have perfect DNA. Yeah, he doesn't have perfect DNA. So now you've got this same genetic bottleneck.
No, he doesn't have perfect DNA. But he's still not at the point that we are today. I mean, he's still thousands of years before today. I'm not sure how much time. Like, I don't have the numbers in my head, but I'm not sure how much time he's removed from Adam and Eve.
However, how large do you suppose Noah's family was? Was it a couple of hundred?
It was like 20 people, right?
No, it was
him, his wife, and
it's
3 sons.
Yeah, it's listed
right?
in the Bible how many people were actually on the ark with him, and it's a handful. It's a handful. But all I'm saying, Isaac, is I mean, we can say that these people would have all these lethal genes, and they get together, and this is a problem. But once again, we weren't there. We don't know, and we can make a postulate or whatever and say yes, thousands of years ago one family would have been a problem. But I'm suggesting to you that no, I think there's
the only way that could work is if the rules of physics have changed.
Or the rate of mutation is radically changed.
Well, we're throwing around these things, but I just think these things have to be examined again. Like we're saying, this is a physical impossibility, this is a molecular impossibility.
I think that's where we have to. I guess the only way that religion and science can be reconciled is that if they stay in their respective domains.
Let me address that, Isaac. Address that, Isaac, because let me say I am not. I didn't go through school for molecular biology, and so right now, we need to bring in a molecular biologist who can speak with more authority.
Well, Isaac is a PhD candidate.
Well, and that's why I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing.
No, I know, but I'm saying that's like my point, right? Like a lot of religious fanatics or fundamentalists will actually make a lot of claims on the physical world, and you citing molecular genetics when a lot of them aren't as modest as you are to admit that they are not experts, right? So I'm saying that's the problem.
Sure. And that is a problem. No, you're right. That is a problem. We should be humble. We should stay to what we know and not make claims to what we don't know. But I would just say that I would like to bring in a molecular biologist who happens to be a scientist or a Christian, who you would call maybe a fanatic. But I'd like to bring someone like that in so that you guys could have an intelligent talk about molecular biology in respect to Noah and how this could be a possibility. Because I can't speak with authority for that.
Okay. I would just like to address that by also asking a question that might possibly lead to another point. But Isaac, would it be possible, though, that I guess people's genes were different, and like Keegan were alluded to earlier about the rate of mutation being different and the amount of lethal genes being different. And that would it be possible that at that time inbreeding would not cause as big a problem as it would today, genetically speaking?
All right.
Well, all I'm talking about is the possibility.
I guess they would still have lethal genes, but is it too much to the lethal genes that they carry thousands of years? I'm not sure what the rate of these lethal genes being introduced in the system is. But
it doesn't matter.
How much would they have?
You can't, through sexual reproduction, maintain a population from two individuals. Like that just
not now. But
happen.
What about thousands of years ago?
Well, like I said, you're implying that the rules have changed.
No, I know. I'm just saying that the lethal genes, through mutation. I mean,
doesn't matter. Like everyone's
have increased over time.
That may be the case, but nobody's perfect. So everybody carries some sort of form of a dysfunctional gene. It's you might not have the same ones, but if you have a gene that does not work properly for whatever reason, could be a lethal gene. So there are unimaginable number of like lethal or.
So you're saying that even if they had one lethal gene,
they wouldn't have one, right? Like that's the thing.
If we have 300 today, and we're talking thousands
on average,
of years, like, do they have 10?
No,
like,
it'd probably
what's
still
the
be
number?
300.
But wait. Why would it be 300 thousands of years ago and 300 today?
Because it's actually called the maintenance of lethal genes by heterozygosity. Like it is maintained because it's not lethal in the het state, so you can't through natural. So you'd have to believe in natural selection, but through natural selection, it can't be selected against because it's maintained in the heterozygous state.
Okay, but what if I'm saying?
So they don't increase.
They don't increase, but they will be maintained.
Okay, but what I'm saying, and I'm saying this, I can say this with authority, is that Adam and Eve were perfect. I'm saying they did not have these 300 detrimental.
Yeah, but like human beings by definition cannot be perfect, right?
But why,
we are infallible. We are fallible, mortal beings. Because if we
are
were
now,
if we were
sinful, right? We're born sinners.
Wouldn't
we be God? I don't know. I'm just
people talking.
I'm just saying that. Okay, like. The problem is that, like you said, the Bible was written thousands of years ago, okay? And I actually disagree that there were eyewitness accounts when the council decided on what books to write. I think that was done, like, way after eyewitness accounts.
I'm saying it's been affirmed many times throughout time.
Yeah,
so eyewitnesses were there, but obviously thousands of years after.
Exactly,
I mean, we're still,
there were two testaments, right?
To be honest, we're still affirming it today.
Yeah,
and I think we know that 2,000 years removed, there are no eyewitness people.
Okay. And another thing is, there are, first of all, there are two testaments, right? One is like 6,000 years old, and the other one's only 2,000 years old, right? And then they were all put together, so there could not have been an eyewitness for all of them. Like the 2000.
Well, the Old Testament is over a span of 6,000 years. But I mean, the prophet Isaiah was writing about
what
Jesus
Isaac's saying is there couldn't be one eyewitness that witnessed all of it.
Okay. So, and another thing is that
definitely not.
They made claims about physical reality, right, in the Bible, which was written thousands of years ago. So you're saying that is as good as modern science's description of physical reality today? That can't be the case because we've actually, we've developed and advanced, and that's actually the problem with having an infallible entity giving down laws, because you can't amend. You can't amend anything because he can't ever be wrong.
What is attested to in the Bible is that God made these things. He said, let there be light, there was light. Let there be animals, there were animals. Let there be people, there were people, and so on and so forth. This, as much as you think, we can be 10,000 years or so removed from that, and now, we're at an advanced state of learning, and we're smarter than any other generation of people, at least because of our accumulated knowledge.
Yeah, it's just the knowledge.
And our systems of bringing this knowledge together. That we are more advanced as a society than we've ever been, and so we can speak against what happened 10,000 years ago based on what we can dig up today and what we know and what we can postulate today. We can say that there's no way this could possibly happen. It's just such a in my whole talk about us being humble, it's just such a proud stance to take. To say that God said, let these things be, and they were. And but these were written out of ignorance. These were written out of ignorance. People didn't know that that's impossible for a supernatural being to snap his fingers and for things to come into being. That's
no. I'm not saying that that's not impossible, because we can't fathom a supernatural being. I'm not saying that I'm just saying that it couldn't have happened literally like it did in the Bible.
Why is that?
Because it's inconsistent.
What's inconsistent?
Okay, for example, like the God just creating the world in like 7 days or whatever.
Yes.
Like, how can you explain the formation based on observation on the current physical reality of anything like that being made in 7 days? It takes billions of years to make solar systems and galaxies.
Well, it takes billions of years if you're not God.
Okay.
I think the whole. Hold on. Let me clarify something.
It's a fair point. Though.
No. Well, the thing is,
if you're God, you can do. I mean, if you're God, I.
So you're saying God snapped his fingers and then walked away? That's what you're saying.
I have a better question for you. I have a better question for you. If he's God, I mean, if he's the holder of all the, if there are no limits to God, which By definition, there can't be.
Okay, yeah,
oneness of
okay,
God.
I gotcha.
Why did it take him 7 days? Like, why did it take him a full 7 days to make all this? Like, doesn't that seem like a long time for
You know
God
what?
without limits?
That's a question that
Isn't
we
that
should
a
be
valid
asking
question?
you.
Yeah, that's
Well,
okay.
Ask it back to me.
Okay, why did it take 7 days?
Yeah, why did it take 7 days?
Here's the problem.
That's a fantastic question.
There's
Why-
no
why did it
such
take
thing.
7
Let
days?
him answer the question.
Sure.
I wasn't actually
Let him
asking
hear
it
it.
seriously. Okay, fine. We can answer
Okay,
it.
yeah. I mean, you know what? God could have done it in a millisecond. He could have done it in even a smaller fraction of time than that. I think it took him 7 days because he wanted to lay out a foundation for how men were to live. That he was demonstrating that it took him 6 days. On the seventh day, he rested, and then he said, you know, and that's a guideline for men as well. That, you know, do not forget the God who created you, and keep the Sabbath, keep the seventh day holy. You know, rest on the seventh day. That's how I've made you.
I just realized one thing. All right, so you agree that God is perfect in every way and all-powerful.
By definition.
Then why did he rest on the seventh day? Isn't he too awesome to need a rest?
Well, here's
No. Fair enough. I think he rested for our benefit, not for his benefit.
All right,
I think he.
Sorry,
I think he even took 7 days to create,
All
not
right.
for his benefit, but for our benefit, to give us a model. I mean, you know, our week is you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Our week is off of this 7 days.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
off of the Roman calendar.
Well,
All
but
right.
where did the Roman
Yeah,
calendar come from? You know?
Probably from the Hebrews or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
Okay.
I would suggest that.
I have actually a more fundamental, actually probing question. Okay, let's say it's like more metaphysical as opposed to like physical. It's let's say so do you guys believe in free will?
Do we believe in free
Yeah.
will?
So do you believe that you have a choice to choose right and wrong?
I believe God is in control.
So then
Go ahead.
So do you have free will then? If
Do
God,
we have free will?
Yeah.
No, not entirely. No.
Yeah,
Not entirely.
Like who was
No.
it? Yeah,
No free will.
not the way that we see it. Like free will, like I think it was Kant who said it. It's an illusion to mankind.
Okay, so
But-
then if we don't have free will, then how can the concept of heaven and hell and the afterlife be just if you do not have a choice in what you're going to do? So then how can you be judged? That's
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that is actually a fantastic question, and one that I don't think I can give you a perfect answer for, but I can start to give you an answer for. If you look in the book of Romans, Romans is a fantastic book to start with if you have that question. The book of Romans starts out by saying that God's creation is right in front of your eyes. You know, it's so obvious that men are without excuse. However, men take the truth of God, aka, you know, God creating this world, and they suppress that truth by whatever means they want to suppress it or change it, and they decide that they want to live however they want to live, and then so then it goes on to say that God gives these men and women over to their inner desires, and then all chaos breaks loose and ensues, and it just goes through this whole list of murder and strife and
Yeah,
disobedience.
but as soon as you say the word choice, you choose. Like
Well,
that
but
implies
this-
free will.
Well, and let me continue. So anyway, it goes on to talk about this world that's going to thrown into chaos because God's giving it over to their own desires. They've turned from God. They've gone to self, and God says, "Fine, if that's the way you want it, that's the way you'll get it." And so He gives them over to their own desires, and a whole world of chaos ensues. However, God is in control, but He still holds these people responsible for their sins. It's like, because you read further in the
Then
book.
how is God in control then if the humans are the ones making the decisions?
Yeah, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah,
you
you
either
can't- you
have
can't-
free will or you don't.
No.
There's no mediocre
I can't,
free will.
No,
Like-
I can't have it both ways. But what I'm reporting to you is not my own opinion.
Yeah.
It's what is stated in the Bible.
Right,
That
and
somehow,
what we're saying
We're getting
is
in. Yeah, it's a
Well,
fundamental
it's
contradiction.
It's a fundamental contradiction based on your human finite understanding. So you're basically now you're setting yourself up in the seat of judge over God, and you're telling God that no, what you stated is a fundamental contradiction, and I will not stand for that. So basically, you know, you're saying God shouldn't be judged, but now you're sitting in the seat of judge over God and judging God. Like, that is a very lofty
But
position.
let
to
me
sit in.
think-
let me. Okay.
Sorry, can I just say? I think what we're saying is. Okay, go ahead, Tony. People keep interrupting me, but whatever, you know.
I'm very sorry, Roman. But okay, I don't presume to be, the master of all knowledge, and I don't presume to be, able to answer this question because people have debated this for probably thousands of years. But let me ask you, Isaac. So if I were to give you a choice right now, I'm going to give you two options. One, I'll give you $1 million. Two, I'm going to slap you in the face. What would you choose?
Take the slap.
Well, it depends on it depends on what level you want to look at it, right? If there are implications to taking the $1 million, as in something bad gonna happen.
True. I suppose you could think that there are implications, but the whole point of that is being when given a choice of something where the outcome is so obvious, it's not really the person choosing that. I mean, the person choosing is still responsible, but ultimately the person who gives the choice is the one who's in control of the situation, and that's what Graydon was alluding to. But
I think you always have a choice, man. You always have a choice.
Yes, you can always choose to be slapped in the face instead of getting $1 million.
Yeah.
But
the implications are worse, right?
Yes, if the implications are worse. Yeah. But in my case, I know the implications of being a Christian. I know that some people out there don't fully understand it. That's not just all joy and like flowers and unicorns and everything. That it is a hard life. But I also know that some people don't see those. Some people don't see the choice clearly, and that's what Romans was also talking about. Not the book. Romans.
Yeah, I would just I think both of us would really encourage you to read the book of Romans, because instead of hearing it from our mouths, which have the only authority we have is the authority that Jesus Christ has given us. But read the book of Romans, see it out of God's lips Himself, how He describes His sovereign control, and yet man's responsibility for their sin at the same time. Because truly, as you said, Isaac, these two things do seem to be at odds. That God would completely be in control of this world. However, men sin, and God holds them responsible for this sin. I would just encourage you to read the book of Romans because in our human minds this does seem like a problem. I mean,
the thing is, if we use Occam's razor,
oh my God.
No, seriously,
the
simplest explanation is the most likely one.
What's the simplest explanation?
The simplest explanation in this case is that either A, God doesn't exist, or B, the Bible is
Okay, I don't
BS.
think we can make any claims on whether or not God exists or not. 'Cause
Right.
we really don't know. But I'm saying what we can make claims on are like how God is presented to us through various denominations and organizations. And I'm saying that those presentations are inconsistent and fundamentally contradictory.
Yeah.
All right. So, and actually, you mentioned before that by making such claims about free will, I'm actually putting myself above the seat of God and judging God. But I'm saying that and how the free will concept is a contradiction in our human minds, right? In human logic. But I would argue that that's all we have is our human logic, and that's all we can really depend on, whether or not it's fallible or not. But it's the best we have, and I think that's a lot better than saying going to anything that we don't understand and saying, oh, it's divine. It's divine. I think that's a cop-out, and I think that's a much, I guess, it's a lazy way of approaching things.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty much it.
Well, I don't think that's, I guess it could be perceived as a cop-out, but for things that we really have no authority over, and for things that happen in the past, I'm talking history here, it's very hard to scientifically prove history because you can't really reproduce it.
Well, this isn't even science we're talking about.
You assume that the laws of physics have stayed the same.
Well, not just that, but okay.
If you rely on the fact that if you assume that the laws of physics have been the same, right? Then you can make certain deductions.
Well, the thing about actually back to the very fundamental reason we're here, like science versus religion. The one thing I see about religion is that religion does not accept the possibility of a God. I'm not just talking about accept God. science. My bad. Science does not accept the possibility of a God, because if you take in God
I'd
as
say
the
that's
premise,
absolutely wrong, because
Science makes no claim.
yeah, science
okay,
makes
but-
no claims.
but-
In fact, science says that we can never, as scientists, we can never prove a negative. So we can never prove that God doesn't exist.
Well, then, if God does exist, then everything that I've heard in the past, I guess, this semester that we talked about, all these so-called inconsistencies, so impossibilities in terms of the physical laws being broken, those are very easily accomplished with the presence of a God. And that's, just of the utmost impossibility to you guys.
How come we don't see these miracles anymore? Like, how come we don't see the laws of physics broken today?
Now that we can actually measure them
Yeah,
accurately.
exactly. For example, like Jesus turning 5 loaves of bread and 2 pieces of fish to feed
feeding
5,000.
multitude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, how
yeah.
come we don't see that kind of stuff happening today? Like, that would be a saving grace in Africa right now. Right?
Yeah, that'd be great. Like if you saw that though, Isaac, like if that happened in front of you, would you believe it?
Well, if I saw that, then I would definitely start questioning what my understanding of science. But I've never seen anything like that in my life.
No
like
one
I've
has.
no
one has
one
alive.
has.
Well, I would say that there are miracles still happening today. I mean,
Well, they're
you know,
much
All right,
more
okay,
modest.
but
well-
even if there are miracles and laws of physics can be broken, then it appears to me that that they can't happen to miracles cannot happen to a subset of people. Let's say, for arbitrarily, I'll just say amputees. Let's say I got my arm cut off.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much I pray, how much whatever it happens, I will never get that arm back. That's like one ailment. Maybe some people say miraculously cancer got cured in them or what. But for some reason, God seems to be unable to heal amputees, right?
Well,
arms can never grow back, despite other claims of miracles. How come that specific ailment is
Yeah,
never...
and
Yeah,
fair-
and what he's
fair-
saying is it always seems that these miraculous cures and such happen, but they can also be explained by something far more logical and scientific.
Well, okay, and if you look
It's
at
just
the
low probability.
Yeah.
if you look at I think we can agree that the miracles in the Bible, if those happened, those would be hard to explain.
The miracles in the Bible.
Yeah.
They're
And-
impossible. I
but-
don't think
okay.
they happen. Like,
Okay, fair enough. And
Yeah.
now the Bible, we're looking at it as if a miracle happened every other day. However, this Bible, is not, you think it's a big book. It's not that big. It doesn't take that long to go through it. And it's a compilation of a history of about 6,000 years.
yeah, and also it's been diluted. The meaning has been diluted through translation, right? This is like what would you have is like
Isaac,
the
Isaac,
fourth.
see, you jump on too many things here because now I have to address that.
No, I know. But
You know,
I'm
like
saying
that-
they all compound though.
he's
They all
he's saying it's not
compound.
the original
Yeah, it's not in
manuscripts.
Hebrew.
Well,
It's
but
not
that-
in ancient Greek. It's not King James. It's actually a version that's from the King James that's been
Well,
translated
that's
into
and that's not
modern
true.
English.
That's not true. But
Well, that's not. Is that the King James version you're holding right now?
no. This is the English Standard Version.
Yeah, so that's
Do
what's
you think
taken
it was
from.
translated from the King James
Yes,
version?
I do. Yeah,
well,
that's
that would
what
be,
it was.
well, you would be wrong.
Well, you think. Well,
Well, I know for sure that's
So it
not
was
right.
from the what?
It was from the original text.
Hebrew and
Yeah, in fact, pastors who go through school to be pastors and different Bible schools and such, they have to learn the original Greek. They have to learn ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek. That's one of their courses.
No, I understand,
Like
yeah.
my father being a pastor.
Yeah.
He knows.
Isaac's father is also a pastor.
Yeah.
Oh boy, so you're one of those. I knew we were dealing with something
Yeah,
here.
well,
Okay, fair enough.
No, like I can say that my dad
Your family's
cannot.
praying for
He
you.
can't. He can read ancient Greek a little bit, but he there's no way you
Well,
can
and-
read it
and-
enough.
Yeah,
to
and
catch
you can't.
all-
Well,
and
no,
the
no,
other
no,
thing
no.
is,
Yeah.
you can directly translate it, but you can't get the subtle nuances
No,
of
because there are
of
idioms,
connotation.
cultural like.
Well, and that's why. And thank you. That's why when you talk about contradictions, you say, this doesn't agree with this because the English, what I'm reading in the English does not agree with it. Fair enough. You have to be inside the context of these people inside the original language to see that this is not a contradiction, but simply you're reading this from a fairly limited, you're reading this English, not being in this situation, not being part of this culture, and you're calling this a contradiction. So fair enough, and you're right. But what I'm saying is the translations we have in English have been directly translated from the original language by people who are well versed well-versed, much more versed than Isaac's father or my father in the original language, because neither of our fathers translated the Bible into English. But men who have spent their whole lives studying these ancient languages and are passionate about it and have translated it into English.
All right. I wish we could continue. But
are we out of time?
We are completely
oh my goodness, there's so many loose ends here.
So
wow.
Part 2 for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We'll be doing this again next week.
Oh, can I pump the 6 again?
Yeah, quick.
Thanks, man. So yeah, April the 6th, UA 2120. It's 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be archaeology in the Bible, contradiction or consistency. An archaeologist straight from the Middle East is coming to show us what he's got. It's going to be good.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This was Symposium on theriotradio.com. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time.